Welcome back for another deep dive. You know we love to get our hands dirty with the latest and greatest AI research, and this one is no exception. Today we're diving into a paper all about AI and video generation.
Yeah, this one's titled GSD-DiT Advancing Video Generation with Pseudo 4D Gaussian Fields Through Efficient Dense 3D Point Tracking.
Now, I know that title might sound a little intimidating, but bear with us.
Yeah, it's a mouthful.
The concepts behind it and the possibilities it unlocks are seriously mind-blowing.
Yeah, they really are.
So, just to give you a taste of what we're talking about here, think multi-camera shots, dolly zoom effects, even editing objects within generated videos, all after the fact.
Right.
Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah.
This is the kind of stuff that could revolutionize how we make videos forever. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. It's groundbreaking work. What I find fascinating is that this paper addresses a very specific problem that filmmakers have been grappling with for years. It's the desire for fine-grained control over video generation. Current models can create realistic videos for sure, but they often lack that nuanced control that you get with real-world cameras and editing tools.
Right. It's like being handed the super high-tech camera, but you can only press the record button.
Exactly.
No zooming, no panning, no adjusting the focus. It's like, here, film something, but you can't really, do anything with the camera.
Right.
So that's where the system, GSD-DiT, comes in. And it all hinges on these two really cool concepts, dense 3D point tracking and pseudo 4D Gaussian fields. But before we get bogged down in all the technical jargon, can you maybe paint us a picture? What does 4D control actually mean for video generation?
Okay, so imagine you're filming a scene, but instead of just moving the camera around, you can control everything. Like you can shift the camera's perspective, adjust the lens settings on the fly. You can even change the position and movement of objects within the scene, all after you filmed it.
Whoa!
It's like having this virtual film set where the rules of physics don't apply. You have full control over everything.
That's pretty wild, but I can only imagine training an AI to do all of that would require a ridiculous amount of data, right?
You're telling me.
Like every possible camera angle, every object movement, it must be massive.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. If we were relying on those traditional methods, we'd need huge data sets of perfectly synchronized multi-camera footage.
Right.
It'd be a logistical nightmare to even obtain all that data, let alone just try to use it to train an AI. Not to mention incredibly expensive and limiting in terms of the kinds of scenes you could capture.
Right. You can't just go out and film everything from every angle all the time.
Yeah.
So how did these researchers who wrote this paper, how did they crack the code? They must have found some kind of workaround, right? You can't just magically film everything from every angle.
They did. And it's actually remarkably clever. Instead of using real multi-camera footage, they created something called pseudo 4D Gaussian fields.
Okay.
So think of them as simplified 3D models that can represent the scene from different viewpoints and with different object positions over time.
So they're basically creating this virtual version of the scene, right? It's almost like a digital puppet show that they can manipulate at will.
That's a great analogy. And the key to building these digital puppets, these Gaussian fields, it all comes down to dense 3D point tracking. Their method, which is called D3D-PT, it can track the movement of individual points in a video with remarkable efficiency and accuracy.
Okay, I'm hearing this D3D-PT method is really the heart of it all. Can we dive a little deeper into how that actually works?
Sure. So it all starts with this existing 2D point tracking algorithm to kind of get an initial sense of how the points are moving in the video. But then, to get a better understanding of the depth, they also incorporate additional information, like a depth map or even a depth estimation model. This basically lets them map those 2D points into 3D space.
Okay, so they're taking this flat video and then they're building a 3D model by figuring out how far away each point is from the camera frame by frame, right?
Precisely. And by doing this for every frame, they end up with this evolving 3D model, a point cloud, if you will, that captures the scene's structure and movement over time.
Okay, cool. So now we have this constantly changing 3D model, but how do we actually generate a new video from a different perspective using all this information?
So that's where those pseudo 4D Gaussian fields come in. Remember we talked about them as simplified 3D models? Well, they're built directly from the data that's gathered by the D3D-PT method. Each point in our 3D model is then transformed into a Gaussian. You can think of it as this small, colorful blob with a certain density, and all of these blobs are positioned within 3D space.
Interesting. So we're basically taking all those precisely tracked points and turning them into these fuzzy 3D blobs. But what's so special about these Gaussian fields? Why not just use the points directly?
Well, because these Gaussian fields have some really handy properties. For instance, they can be very easily rendered from any viewpoint. Imagine you have this virtual camera that can just fly through the scene, capturing it from any angle imaginable.
Hmm.
And that's how they achieve that really cool multi-camera effect.
Ah, so they don't actually need to film the scene from multiple angles in the real world. They just like render it from any angle they want using these Gaussian fields.
Right, like a video game.
Like a video game engine. Wow.
And all of that is made possible because of that incredibly efficient and accurate 3D point tracking method.
Okay, my mind is blown. But I have to ask, how do they actually ensure that the final video, how is it so smooth and realistic? There must be tons of data packed into these Gaussian fields, right?
There is. And that's where the DET in GSDIT comes in. It actually stands for Diffusion Transformer, a powerful AI model that excels at generating high-quality images and videos.
Okay, so we have these Gaussian fields representing the scene. Where does the diffusion transformer fit into all of this?
So you're probably familiar with transformers from the world of large language models.
Yeah.
Well, in this context, they kind of work similarly. But instead of predicting the next word in a sentence, they're actually predicting pixels. The diffusion transformer takes those rendered images from our Gaussian fields, uses them as a guide, and then generates the final video. It's like having an artist using a rough sketch as a guide to then create a final masterpiece.
So the Gaussian fields are like the sketch, right? Providing the basic structure. And then the diffusion transformer is like the artist, filling in all the details to create the final video.
A perfect analogy. Just as a skilled artist can create a photorealistic painting from a simple sketch, the diffusion transformer can generate incredibly realistic videos from the relatively sparse information that's contained within the Gaussian fields.
That's pretty remarkable. But you mentioned earlier that these Gaussian fields are pseudo 4D. What does that actually mean, and why is it important?
That's a great question. A true 4D Gaussian field would represent, like, perfectly the scene in both space and time, but that's incredibly hard to achieve, especially from a single video.
I can imagine. Because the real world is constantly changing and full of unpredictable movements.
Exactly. It's not a static 3D model. So these pseudo 4D Gaussian fields offer this really clever simplification.
Okay.
They capture the 3D structure of the scene and how it evolves, but is more of an approximation rather than a perfect recreation of reality.
It's like creating a highly detailed map of a city.
You capture the streets and buildings, but that traffic and pedestrian movements, all that stuff, that's going to be like slightly unpredictable.
Yes.
It's more about capturing the essence, but still allowing for some flexibility, right?
Precisely. And what's really impressive is that even despite the simplification, these pseudo 4D Gaussian fields are incredibly effective. The diffusion transformer can kind of fill in the gaps and generate a final video that looks shockingly realistic.
It's amazing how researchers can take something as complex as capturing a scene in 4D and find ways to simplify it without actually losing that crucial information. It speaks to the ingenuity of this whole approach.
Yeah, it does. And I think this whole concept of simplifying complex data while retaining enough of the important information for the AI to still work with has enormous potential. It wouldn't surprise me if we start seeing similar techniques used in other fields, like robotics, autonomous driving.
Yeah, the possibilities are pretty exciting. But let's circle back to the paper for a sec. What else caught your eye in the research? Besides the really impressive results, I was really struck by how GSDIT performed compared to the other existing methods. So they tested this on several datasets, Davis, Sora, and Pixabay, and the results were truly remarkable. Not only was the visual quality superior, but the control accuracy was off the charts.
Okay, hold on. Tell me more about this control accuracy. How did they actually measure that?
Good question.
Did they have like specific tasks for the AI to perform?
They did. They created this special camera path called the arc ball rotation.
Oh.
So imagine you program a very specific camera movement and then test whether or not the AI can accurately recreate the video from that new perspective. It's a pretty challenging task.
So they could take, let's say, a video of a cheetah running and then ask GSDIT to recreate that same video as if the camera was smoothly circling around the cheetah?
That's exactly right. And what's incredible is that GSDIT just nailed those complex camera movements, keeping the cheetah's motions perfectly in sync. It's a testament to the precision and the control that the system offers.
That's wild. Okay, so we talked a lot about camera control, but what about those other 4D manipulations, like the object editing? Can GSDIT really change how things move within a generated video?
It absolutely can. I mean, think about it. We already talk about how every point in the scene is tracked and then represented within these Gaussian fields, right?
Mhm.
So manipulating those points is really all it takes to then alter the scene itself.
Oh, okay.
So, for example, they took a video of a rotating fan and using GSDIT, were able to change its axis of rotation.
Wait, so they actually made the fan rotate in a completely different way within the generated video?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what's even more impressive is that they did it without introducing any of those weird visual artifacts. The changes were seamless and incredibly realistic.
Wow, that is truly groundbreaking stuff. But I think, just so we don't lose anyone along the way, could you maybe give us a quick recap of what we've covered so far?
Sure. So we started by discussing those limitations of the current video generation models, how they just lack that fine-grained control that filmmakers crave. Then we introduced GSDIT, this system that uses dense 3D point tracking and pseudo 4D Gaussian fields to achieve unprecedented control over those generated videos. We talked about how they track individual points in a video, use that data to build those 3D representations, and then use a diffusion transformer to generate incredibly realistic videos from all sorts of different perspectives. We even touched upon their impressive results, showcasing how accurately they can control camera movement and even manipulate objects within a scene.
Wow, that's a fantastic summary. So this GSDIT system really does sound like a filmmaker's dream tool.
Doesn't it?
But I'm curious, what are your thoughts on the broader implications of this technology? What does this mean for the future of video creation?
It's amazing to consider, isn't it? This technology could revolutionize how we make films, animations, even virtual reality experiences.
Yeah.
The possibilities are truly endless.
We're not just talking about fancy camera tricks here. This could fundamentally change how we tell stories and experience the world through video.
Absolutely.
This is why we love deep dives. We start with this complex paper and end up talking about the future of storytelling. But with all of this power, it's also important to consider the potential challenges that might arise.
Oh, for sure. One area that immediately comes to mind is the sheer computational power that's required to actually run these models. Training AI models, especially ones dealing with video, it requires enormous amounts of computing resources.
It makes you wonder if this technology will be accessible to everyone, or if it's going to be limited to those with access to powerful hardware and infrastructure. It's a question of democratization and accessibility.
Yeah, it's a really crucial consideration as we move forward. We need to make sure that these technologies are developed and deployed in a way that benefits everyone and not just a select few.
Okay, this has been an incredible conversation so far. And honestly, we've only scratched the surface. There's so much more to explore, including the technical details of how these Gaussian fields are constructed and even the inner workings of the diffusion transformer.
Right, and let's not forget those potential applications beyond filmmaking and entertainment. The efficient 3D point tracking method could have a huge impact on fields like robotics and even autonomous driving.
Yeah, we barely even touched upon the wider implications of this research.
Uh-huh.
So let's take a short break, and when we come back, we'll dive even deeper into all of these fascinating topics.
You know, it's just fascinating to think about how this seemingly niche research paper could have such a ripple effect across multiple industries. Like we talked about filmmaking, VR, but even fields like robotics and autonomous driving, all that stuff could benefit immensely from efficient 3D point tracking.
It's true. That's what's so cool about these deep dives. You never know where the conversation might lead us. But before we venture too far off course, I'm still a little curious about those pseudo 4D Gaussian fields. We touch upon how they're constructed from all those precisely tracked points, but how do they actually capture the essence of a scene's movement and evolution over time? It just seems like there must be a lot of complexity packed into those seemingly simple 3D blobs.
Yeah, you're right. There's a lot more to these Gaussian fields than meets the eye. Remember how each Gaussian, it represents a specific point in our 3D model.
Right.
Well, it's not just about the point's location in space, it's also about its characteristics.
So we're talking about things like color, density, how bright or opaque that point appears in the video.
Exactly. Each Gaussian, it encodes all those visual properties along with its position. And here's where it gets really interesting. The way that these Gaussians are arranged and how their properties change over time is what actually captures that dynamic nature of the scene.
So it's not just a static snapshot of the scene. These Gaussian fields are constantly evolving and morphing to reflect the movement and all the changes that are happening within the video.
Precisely. Think of it like this. Imagine all those Gaussians as tiny lights, each with its own color and brightness.
Okay, yeah.
And as objects in the scene move, those lights shift their positions. Their colors might change, some might dim while others brighten. It's like a beautifully choreographed dance of light and color, all captured within these Gaussian fields.
Okay, that's a really cool way to visualize it. So essentially, these Gaussian fields, they're like a 4D map of the scene, capturing not just the spatial arrangement of objects, but also how their appearance changes over time.
You got it. And it's this the rich 4D information that makes it possible for that diffusion transformer to generate those realistic and dynamic videos.
Okay, so we have this incredible 4D representation of the scene, but can we talk a little bit more about the diffusion transformer itself? You mentioned that it's similar to those transformers that are used in language models, but how does it actually work in the context of video generation? How does it actually take those Gaussian fields and turn them into a coherent and like visually stunning video?
That's where the magic of AI really comes in. You see, the diffusion transformer isn't just randomly spitting out pixels. It's actually trained on a massive data set of videos, and it learns the patterns, the relationships, and how all the different visual elements actually interact over time.
So it's building an understanding of like the world, how things move, how lighting affects objects, all those little subtle nuances that make a video feel real.
Absolutely. It's like teaching a child about the world by showing them countless examples. And the diffusion transformer learns from these examples, and then when it's presented with those Gaussian fields, it can use that knowledge to fill in those gaps and generate a video that adheres to the rules of that visual world that it's learned.
It's almost like it's imagining what the video should look like based on its understanding of reality and then the guidance that's provided by the Gaussian fields. It's like a virtual filmmaker, composing the shots and ensuring everything looks and feels natural.
That is a fantastic way to put it. And what's even more remarkable is that the diffusion transformer can do all of this while still accounting for all those changes that we make within those Gaussian fields. Remember how we talked about how those Gaussians, they can be manipulated to change the camera perspective, adjust object positions, and even alter their appearance over time.
Right, so if we shift the camera angle within the Gaussian field, the diffusion transformer automatically knows how to render the scene from that new perspective, ensuring everything remains consistent and realistic.
Exactly. It's like having a virtual camera operator that instantly adapts to every command. It seamlessly adjusts the shot to match your creative vision.
It's really incredible how all these different components, the dense 3D point tracking, the pseudo 4D Gaussian fields, and then the diffusion transformer, they all work together to create this crazy powerful system for video generation.
Yeah, it's really cool. It really is a testament to the power of interdisciplinary research, combining insights from computer vision, 3D modeling, and AI to achieve something truly groundbreaking.
Now, we've touched upon how efficient and accurate that D3D-PT method is, but can you elaborate on like why that's such a big deal? What makes it so much better than previous approaches to 3D point tracking?
So traditional methods for 3D point tracking, they're often computationally very expensive and really slow. Imagine trying to track the movement of hundreds of thousands, even millions of points in a high-resolution video. It's a lot of work for a computer to do.
So it's not just about getting like the right answer, it's about getting it quickly enough that it can be used in like those real-time applications like video generation or robotics, right?
Exactly. If your 3D point tracking takes hours to process a single frame of video, it's just not practical at all. And that's where D3DPT really shines. It leverages some really clever algorithms and optimizations to reduce that computational burden significantly.
So they've managed to make it both really fast and accurate, which opens up a ton of possibilities.
Absolutely. Not only does it make video generation with GSDIT more practical, but it also paves the way for all those real-time applications in other fields. Imagine robots that can navigate these complex environments with ease, or autonomous vehicles that can perceive and react to their surroundings with incredible precision.
It's amazing to think about the potential impact of this research even beyond just the realm of entertainment. We often associate AI with those flashy applications like video generation or self-driving cars, but it's often these fundamental breakthroughs that really lay the foundation for progress across multiple domains.
You're absolutely right. It's the unsung heroes of research, these seemingly small but incredibly significant advancements that have the most profound and lasting impact.
Okay, so you mentioned robotics and autonomous vehicles. Could you maybe give us some more specific examples of how D3DPT could be applied in those fields?
Okay, so picture this. You have a robot navigating a cluttered warehouse. To move efficiently and safely, it needs to constantly track the position and the movement of all those objects around it, right?
Right.
D3DPT could provide that robot with a real-time 3D map of its surroundings, allowing it to avoid obstacles, plan paths, and manipulate objects, all with incredible precision.
It's like giving the robot a superpower.
Yeah.
The ability to see and understand its environment in 3D with amazing accuracy and speed.
And it's not just about perception. D3DPT could also play a huge role in robotic manipulation. Let's say our warehouse robot. It needs to pick up a specific item. By tracking the precise movement of the robot's arm and that target object, D3DPT could help ensure a smooth and successful grasp.
That's incredible. It's like having a built-in motion capture system for the robot, allowing it to do all those delicate tasks with human-like dexterity.
And the applications don't stop there. Think about surgical robots, search and rescue robots, even robots designed to help out with household tasks. That ability to accurately and efficiently track objects in 3D is fundamental to all of those applications.
Okay, that's really opening my eyes to the broader impact of all this research. It's not just about making these cool videos, it's about empowering machines to interact with the world in a much more intelligent and sophisticated way.
Exactly. And this is only just the beginning. As this technology continues to develop and mature, we can expect to see even more innovative and impactful applications emerge.
Now, I know we've been diving deep into those technical details, but let's not forget that human element. We talked about those creative possibilities that GSDIT unlocks for filmmakers and video creators, but what about the potential impact on viewers? How might this technology actually change the way that we consume and perceive video content?
That's a really fascinating question. As this technology becomes more sophisticated and more accessible, we could start seeing a blurring of the lines between reality and fabrication. Imagine watching a movie where you can seamlessly switch between different camera angles, experiencing the scene from multiple perspectives. Or maybe you could even interact with the characters and even the environment, like shaping the narrative in real time.
Wow, it's like stepping inside the movie, becoming an active participant instead of just this passive observer.
Exactly. It opens up a whole world of possibilities for storytelling and immersive entertainment experiences.
But it also raises some questions too, right? Like what happens when the line between reality and what's fabricated becomes even more blurred? How do we navigate a world where we can't always trust what we see?
Those are really crucial questions, and they touch upon those broader societal implications of this technology. We already kind of see the challenges of misinformation and deep fakes, and this technology could definitely amplify those concerns. It really highlights the need for media literacy, for developing a critical eye, and learning to question the source and the intent behind the content that we're consuming.
It's like we're entering this whole new era of visual storytelling where the possibilities are endless, but the responsibility to use these tools ethically is greater than ever. We need to be mindful of the potential for misuse, for creating content that's misleading or even harmful.
You're absolutely right. It's not just about the technology itself. It's about the human choices that drive its development and application. We need to be having these conversations right now and thinking about those ethical guidelines and frameworks that are necessary to make sure that this technology is used responsibly for the benefit of society as a whole.
It's a reminder that while AI can unlock incredible creative potential, it also comes with this huge responsibility to use it wisely and thoughtfully. We need to consider not only the technical advancements, but also the social and the ethical implications of these powerful tools.
And it's not just about preventing harm. It's also about harnessing the power of this technology for good. Imagine using GSBIT to create educational videos that bring history to life, develop immersive simulations for training and education, or even visualize complex scientific data in a way that's super engaging and accessible to everyone.
Yeah, it's about finding that right balance between innovation and responsibility, between pushing those boundaries of what's possible while also safeguarding against potential misuse.
I'm optimistic that we can definitely strike that balance. Throughout history, we've seen how all these new technologies have disrupted and transformed the world that we live in, but we've also learned to adapt, to develop those ethical frameworks, those societal norms that can guide their use.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that technology is a reflection of ourselves, our values, and our choices. We have the power to shape its development and ensure that it's actually used to create a more informed, equitable, and inspiring world.
I couldn't agree more. And it's really through thoughtful conversations like this one, through exploring both the potential and the challenges of all these advancements, that we can collectively navigate this uncharted territory.
This deep dive has been an incredible journey, exploring not only the technical marvels of this research, but also the profound implications for the future of storytelling, creativity, and even the way that we perceive reality.
Yeah, it really has. It's been a privilege to really delve into all these topics with you today and just consider the exciting possibilities that lie ahead.
To our listeners, we really hope that this deep dive has sparked your curiosity and inspired you to think a little bit more critically about the role of AI in our world.
Remember, the future isn't predetermined. It's shaped by all those choices that we make today.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We look forward to exploring more fascinating topics with you in the future. As we've been discussing this research, I just keep thinking about all the creative possibilities it unlocks. We've talked about filmmakers, game developers, but what about like everyday people? Imagine if anyone could create these crazy photorealistic videos just using their imagination and a computer. What kind of impact could that have on storytelling and content creation?
It's really interesting to think about, right? It's essentially democratizing the tools of filmmaking, empowering anyone with a story to tell to bring that vision to life. It could lead to just like this explosion of creativity, with people from all walks of life being able to share their unique perspectives and experiences through video.
Yeah, I can totally see that. A world where anyone can be a filmmaker, an animator, a visual storyteller. It's cool.
Yeah.
But as exciting as that sounds, it also raises some pretty interesting questions. What happens when that line between reality and fabrication becomes even more blurred? How do we navigate a world where we can't always trust what we see?
Those are such crucial questions, and they really touch upon those broader societal implications of this technology. We're already seeing the challenges of misinformation and deepfakes, and this technology could amplify those concerns for sure. It really highlights the need for stronger media literacy, developing that critical eye and learning to question the source and the intent behind the content we consume.
It's like we're entering this new era of visual storytelling where the possibilities are limitless, but that responsibility to use these tools ethically is just greater than ever. We need to be so mindful of the potential for misuse for creating content that's misleading or even harmful.
You're absolutely right. It's not just about the technology, it's about the human choices that drive its development and its application. We need to be having these conversations now, thinking about the ethical guidelines and frameworks that are necessary to ensure that this technology is used responsibly for the benefit of society as a whole.
It's a good reminder that while AI can unlock all this incredible creative potential, it also comes with this huge responsibility to use it wisely and thoughtfully. We need to be considering not just those technical advancements, but also the social and ethical implications of these super powerful tools.
Absolutely. And it's not just about preventing harm, it's about actually harnessing the potential of this technology for good. Imagine using GSDIT to create educational videos that bring history to life, to develop immersive simulations for training and education, or even visualize complex scientific data in a way that's both engaging and accessible to everyone.
It's about finding that balance, right, between innovation and responsibility, between pushing the boundaries of what's possible while also safeguarding against that potential for misuse.
I'm optimistic. I think we can find that balance. Throughout history, we've seen how new technologies disrupt and transform our world. But we've also learned to adapt, to develop those ethical frameworks and societal norms that guide their use.
It's a good reminder that technology is really just a reflection of ourselves, our values, our choices. We have the power to shape its development, to make sure that it's used to create a more informed, more equitable, and inspiring world.
I couldn't agree more. It's through thoughtful conversations like this one, through exploring the potential and the challenges of all these advancements, that we can collectively navigate this new and uncharted territory.
Well, this deep dive has been an incredible journey, exploring not only the technical marvels of this research, but also its profound implications for the future of storytelling, creativity, and even the way that we perceive reality.
It really has been. It's been such a privilege to delve into these topics with you and just consider all the exciting possibilities that lie ahead.
And to our listeners, we hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity and inspired you to think critically about the role of AI in our world.
And remember, the future is not predetermined. It's shaped by the choices we make today.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We look forward to exploring more fascinating topics with you again in the future.